Do you feel numb or apathetic? Do you feel like you don't enjoy anything anymore in your life? You don't enjoy hanging out with your friends, you don't enjoy video games anymore, you don't enjoy anything. In fact, you can't even feel anything. If you never address the root cause of your apathy, if you never confront the fears and the demons that are holding you back from feeling again, you will never overcome your apathy. Here's why. If you struggle with apathy, you've come to the right place, because the goal of this video is to give you a complete understanding of what is apathy and really give you a holistic understanding of what it is beyond what maybe your psychologist told you or what other self-help gurus or spiritual healers or whatever have told you. I want to give you really a perspective talking about all of the spheres in life. So not only your mental health, but also your physical health, how that could affect that, but also environmental factors as well. And as a huge disclaimer, this is not a replacement for seeking professional help, not a replacement for therapy, not a replacement for speaking to a doctor. So I will only be speaking from experience here. Well, now that I told you this, then why should you listen to me if I'm not a professional or anything like that? Well, I've dealt with apathy a lot in my life. I've had many instances of it. Also, I've helped a lot of people deal with it. And one of my most viewed videos is on apathy on my channel. So I've helped a lot of people. And because I've been through it all, through, trying to better my social life, my dating life, going through failures and wanting to give up, wanting to, call it quits. Also, burning out at my previous job, feeling like nothing was pleasurable anymore, not achieving my goals. And I've helped a lot of people along this path, which is why I may have a tip or two to give you. So let's get into the definition, part one, to sort of lay the foundation. So what is apathy? Apathy is a lack of interest, enthusiasm, or concern, pretty much. That's the Google's definition. And it's pretty much a lack of motivation to do anything. You don't feel like doing anything, and you don't feel anything. As simple as that, it's sort of this empty, hollow feeling. So here are some signs of apathy that you may want to look for. So first, less interest in activities once pleasurable, having less energy, loss of interest in social activities, difficulty expressing emotions, isolation, difficulty with solving problems, decision making, and planning. So what are some of the causes of apathy? So there are three possible causes in my opinion. So the first are physiological, so relating to your health. So for example, if you had a brain injury, you have Parkinson's disease, schizophrenia, Alzheimer's, stroke, dementia, all of those things may lead to apathy. The second cause, which is much more common, is actually psychological. So coming from traumatic events, maybe a series of small trauma or a series of chronic stressors in your life, depression, burnout, all these things can lead to apathy. And the third one is what I like to call environmental. So maybe, so for example, dealing with toxic parents or toxic friends that put you down, and it's sort of this negative environment that might lead you to becoming apathetic. And so there are four spheres that I like to get into this video to really explore the idea of what apathy is and how to overcome it. So the four spheres are the physiological sphere, which is basically your body, your health, your physical health, literally your body. Second is the psychological sphere, which is all has to do with your mindset, how you feel, your psychology, how you think. The third one is environmental, as in the people around you, your family, your friends, even where you live, things like that, sort of if you live in a toxic environment or not, so which you could also summarize as the social environment as well. And the fourth one is spiritual. Now this one's a bit more abstract and it's maybe not as necessary, but depending on, what is the root cause of your apathy, it might be worth looking into. So a note on the psychological sphere. I believe that of all of the spheres, if you're watching this video, probably the psychological is the reason why you are feeling apathetic. The physiological is also very, very important. So I would say that these are the most important probably right now. But expanding on those two things, then you want to start working your way to the environmental and spiritual eventually once you handle these two spheres. Now let's begin with the psychological sphere, because I believe it to be the most important, to start with. So for simplicity's sake, I'm going to be using David R. Hawkins' techniques and definitions from his book Letting Go, which I highly recommend you check it out. So apathy can be summarized psychologically in those simple words. It's a feeling of I can't, or a feeling of there is no point, a feeling of why bother, and if I can't win anyway, why even try? That's really if you could summarize it in a few sentences, those are the thoughts that are running through the person who feels apathetic in their lives. It's a loss of faith towards the fulfillment of one's goals and pursuits. It's really a loss of hope, in a sense, and an inability to see the intrinsic value in one's pursuits or goals. Or maybe you saw the intrinsic value of, let's say, wanting to get a girlfriend, or wanting to get a good job, or wanting to, succeed in your career and life. But now you no longer see the value in it. And you sort of lost that spark in your eyes, that sort of inspiration that you once had. Often this comes from some certain traumas or failures from the past, maybe from your childhood, that you failed at something and you see that in the future ahead, since you failed in the past, there's no point in trying again. So it's sort of also a negative future projection as to what will happen. And as a self-preserving mechanism, your body will tell you, don't even try because you will hurt yourself or you will be disappointed. So to avoid disappointment, apathy comes in to sort of make you feel, balance in a strange way, make you feel nothing. And because in the nothingness, at least there is safety. You aren't being, shaken around by the world, or like thrown around and, through fear, agony, pain, struggle, pursuing your goals or whatever you want to achieve. You don't have to do that, because with apathy, then you just feel nothing. And nothing, to the body at least, as a survival mechanism, feeling nothing is better than feeling anger, fear, sadness, and all of these things. So it's basically a defense mechanism in an odd sense. According to me, why does apathy happen? Apathy happens because of a series of traumatic events, often, or a singular traumatic event, what I found, and that because of this event, you sort of become jaded, or you become hopeless in a sense. And because of the stressor, because of the obstacle that made you feel terrible, your body, as a self-defense mechanism, will shove it away, shove it down the side, and your body basically, what your body is saying is like, okay, this is too much for me, this is too much sadness, too much anger, I'm gonna shove it aside, I don't want to feel anymore. And it's a strange thing with, let's say, burnout, or let's say adrenal fatigue, where you get so much stress that like your adrenal glands, they don't want to produce stress anymore, and they're just tired, and they don't want to function anymore. So like, you know what? Give me a fucking break. I don't want to feel anymore. Just put all of these emotions aside, and this is what could happen. And apathy can happen in many spheres of life. It could be relational, career-wise, or even about apathy itself. So for example, I can't get a girlfriend. I will never get a girlfriend, so there's no point in trying. Right? This thought will lead to apathy. This is in the relational domain. I will never be able to get a job. I'll never find the ideal career. I'll never achieve my dream career. There's no point in trying. Now this is career related. Or something else. For example, I've always felt apathetic. I've always felt depressed in my life. I've tried everything. It doesn't work. Nothing has worked, so there's no point in trying. Now, this is a more meta thought about apathy itself. So the secret with dealing with this apathy, dealing with this issue in your life, is to change from I can't, saying I can't, to saying I won't. Okay, now what does that mean? Well, it means that you do have some agency, because when you say I can't, you're saying that there's literally no possibility. When you say I won't, you're saying that there is possibility, but you're simply not willing. Now, by saying that, you are taking back the power, you're taking back the locus of control. Instead of having an external locus of control, where you believe that the world dictates what happens to you, you develop this internal locus of control, where you believe that I have the power to change. I have the power to make certain changes, even if it's small, right? So let's just say something simple like getting out of bed. Let's say you have this thought that tells you, I can't get out of bed, I'm a piece of shit, I'll never amount to anything. Well, is it true? Is it true that you really can't get out of bed? Because really, if you really wanted to get out of bed, you could, right? You could just sort of lift yourself up, walk to the bathroom, or, brush your teeth, I don't know what, right? You could get out of bed. You could do something about it. And you can do that if you change from saying that you can't fucking do it to, you know what, maybe it's possible if I give myself just the willingness to do it, right? Let's say you struggle with getting a job. You're like, oh, I can't get a job. The marketplace is too crowded. It's impossible to get a job now in this recession. It's terrible. I can't get a job. There's no point in trying. Well, is it true that you can't get a job? Because if you really wanted to, if you really put in the effort, then you probably could. If you seeked out the right people, you seeked out the right individuals, the right connection, you could get a job. I was hanging out in my city, like just walking around, and there was this sort of festival going on, and there was someone who was checking everyone's bags before they come in, and the guy was disabled. He wasn't just like a little disabled or maybe on the autism spectrum. He was full-blown disabled. He had this weird speech impediment, and you could see from his movements that he wasn't he was disabled basically. And that was really inspiring to me because if he can get a job as a worker at a festival or whatever, then I mean anyone can get a job. If someone who's disabled and who has trouble speaking can get a job, like this, interacting with other people, where his biggest weakness is social interactions, then I saw that and I was like, wow, anyone can get a job. Anyway, that's just a side tangent. But if you feel hopeless in your life, know that there will always be opportunities for you to achieve what you want. It's just a matter of looking for them and being patient. Now, the next step to dealing with your apathy is to look at the grief. Look at the hidden sadness that might have been lurking in the shadows that maybe you didn't address. Why can grief cause apathy? Well, let's say you get a breakup. Let's say you fail at some of your relationships. Let's say you lose your house, or you lose your childhood home, or your parents pass away, or something like that. The grief that comes because it becomes really intense, then some of the defense mechanisms that your body will use is just apathy, because apathy sort of helps you to go back into your safety zone, and since you're not motivated to do anything, it helps you to sort of process the sadness. For example, after a breakup, you don't want to, the reflex you'd want wouldn't be to go out there and do a bunch of drugs and gamble your way until you have no money. That would be irresponsible. Now, the apathy and the lack of motivation actually helps you with processing the sadness, processing your past, and so your mind can start making new connections as to the present right now and the future and what you're going to do without that person. All of your life was sort of planned out with that person, but now you're gone. Now it's sort of like your mind is sort of processing what to do next, in a sense. And the apathy helps in a way to be more reflective, in a sense, to be more introspective. So maybe it could be a good thing, in a sense. Now, the issue is when you repress the grief. Often, if you allow the grief to come up, you allow the grief to come back, to feel it, to cry it out, to express it, to talk about it, to write about it in your journal, then you'll find that the apathy will subside, and then you will be able to move to a higher level. So if you've been apathetic in your life because you had a breakup, or you lost something that was dear to you, or you became disappointed because you felt at something, then it's a matter of getting back into this state, getting back into the emotion, feeling the emotion again, and letting it go, letting it run its course. So it's this childish sort of defense mechanism that some of us still have, where when we want something, let's say we really wanted something, really wanted this prize, or really wanted to achieve this goal in our life, we don't achieve it. And then we convince ourselves, you know what, I never wanted it in the first place, screw that thing. And then you sort of shove your grief aside, and that leads to apathy. Again, in the point of so you want to be aware of this process, and instead of engaging in this process, you want to get back with the emotion. Now let's talk about fear and how fear can lead to apathy. How repressed fear can lead to apathy. So how can fear turn into apathy? For example, if you have a certain fear in your life and you don't confront it and you decide to shove it aside as if overcoming the fear wasn't important, then that will lead to apathy. A good example is, for example, you want to go to a house party, or you want to go to this social event, and you want to meet people, socialize, but you feel shy, you feel afraid, you don't want to go. Therefore, you decide not to go, and you try to convince yourself that you never wanted to go in the first place. Now, what will happen is you'll sit at home and you'll feel apathetic, you'll feel lack of motivation, and you'll probably sit at home and do nothing. Or whatever you plan to do for that day, I don't know. Just an example. Or, for example, you wanted to approach this beautiful woman, but you're afraid, you don't want to do it, and you want to improve your dating life overall, right? So you want to talk to women, but you tell yourself, you know what, all women are taken, and I'm not even attractive, there's no point in trying. So then you turn your fear into you use a bunch of reasons to not do the thing you're afraid of, and this leads to apathy. So can you see how we make all of these clever excuses not to confront our fears, and because we don't confront our fears, because we don't push ourselves, then we will become apathetic. Yeah, so the real fear here, when you say that you don't want to go to a party, you don't want to waste your time, and you don't want to talk to women, you don't want to waste your time, whatever, okay? When you say that, the real fear isn't that you're afraid to waste your time. The real fear, if you're to be honest with yourself, is that you are afraid to get rejected. You are afraid to be rejected for who you are and to end up alone. You are afraid that you will never get love in your life. You are afraid that you will never succeed in your life. You are afraid of what other people think. You are afraid of all of these things. And if you get at the root cause of why you are afraid and you confront this fear, then you will overcome apathy. Until you overcome these fears, you will always be stuck in apathy. You have to overcome these fears, or you have to at least acknowledge these fears, acknowledge the fear. Because if you don't, then the fear will ruin your life, will run your life, and apathy will be there every step of the way. So in David Hawkins' book, he explains all of the emotions, so apathy, grief, fear, anger, pride, desire, all of these emotions as gradations. And the trick here to move from apathy to a better place is to move up these ladders, to move up these emotions. So you want to address the grief first that I've talked to you. Then you want to address the fears that are holding you back. You want to address all of these, and then you want to start building the desire to change. Aren't you fed up of being afraid? Aren't you fed up of being sad and feeling nothing? Aren't you just fed up of living in this state? I know some of you watching this video right now have been struggling through apathy for 10 plus years. Because for 10 plus years, you haven't addressed those fears, you haven't addressed those things holding you back in your life, and for that reason, you are held back. Aren't you fucking fed up with those emotions? Aren't you fed up with feeling nothing, not achieving anything in your life? Don't you want to get that beautiful girlfriend, that beautiful boyfriend? Don't you want to finally feel love, acceptance, and feel like you are accepted for who you are, loved for who you are? Don't you finally want to be successful in your life? Get that six-pack, achieve the body of your dreams, become the person you always meant to be. Aren't you fed up of just sitting on your ass and doing nothing? And doesn't that make you angry? Doesn't that make you angry that you could be doing more in your life, but for some reason you're not fucking doing it? Wake the fuck up, dude. Wake the fuck up. You're not going to be living your life, forever. You're going to die at some point. and the time to act is now. And I hope that, this helps you. I hope you can feel a bit of this desire and a bit of anger, I hope. Because feeling anger is better than feeling nothing. And from your anger, you can channel that into doing something with your life. And, get to a point in your life where you can feel proud. You can start feeling proud about, even if you don't make it, even if you try your best to improve your social skills, and maybe you don't meet that ideal person right away, can't you feel proud that you at least tried? Can't you feel proud that you step outside of your comfort zone, where millions of men in the world will never do it? Millions of women will never step out of their comfort zone, but you did, so you can achieve the life of your dreams. Can't you feel proud of that? And I hope that this will be the starting point to get you out of your apathy. And I hope this helped you a bit as a wake-up call to fucking do something instead of just sitting there. And yeah, because it's okay to rest, okay? It's okay to sit down and take some time to relax. But if you're struggling with apathy, probably you've been sitting a bit too long, in my opinion. So it's time to stand up and do something, even if it's small. So start with that. And the next step to overcoming apathy is to stop blaming the external world. Stop blaming whatever outside of you, okay? Stop the blame. Stop pointing the finger at other people or pointing the finger at circumstances as to why your life is miserable or why you feel apathetic. Start taking your power back, and instead of trying to blame the external world, blame yourself or take responsibility for yourself. Maybe blame isn't the right word, but responsibility probably is a better word. So think of what you can change in life instead of what the world can do for you. Instead of thinking of what the world can do for you, think of what you can do to the world to change it. What you can do to yourself to change yourself. Now that you know the root cause of apathy, what could be causing it, now you've looked at some of the emotions that could be holding you back, I want you to develop emotional self-awareness. Now this is key because often people who are apathetic, the reason they feel that way is because they have certain emotions deep in them, but they haven't faced them. They haven't looked into these emotions, they haven't conquered these emotions. So what you're going to do here is you're going to tap into these emotions, and you're going to do that every single day. So here's an example. So do this with me. So you can close your eyes and it's gonna take 2 seconds. So just do it with me. So just close your eyes and then just breathe. And try to be aware of the sensations in your body. So your face, your torso, your hands, your arms, your legs, everything. Just take a deep breath and let everything go. Now ask yourself, how do I feel? How do I feel? If you're feeling apathetic, you're probably feeling this sort of numbness in the chest area. Maybe it's sort of this weird empty feeling. Maybe it's this feeling of loneliness, this sort of hollow feeling. Maybe it's tight. Maybe your arms feel tight. Maybe you feel a bit of anger. Maybe you feel a bit of tension. Maybe you feel stress in the forehead, behind the eyes, or behind the ears, or what do you feel? Tap into that. If you feel numb, say you feel numb. If you feel tension, say that. And maybe you're able, when you do that, maybe you're able to feel a certain emotion. Maybe you're able to feel a bit of anger, or a bit of frustration, a bit of fear, even maybe a bit of joy, maybe a bit of happiness somewhere. Maybe something good happened to you, but you didn't acknowledge it. Now acknowledge it now while you're doing this exercise. Now let's focus on any sort of negative emotions you might be feeling. It's tension, sadness, anger, whatever. Tap into that emotion, tap into that feeling. If it's this feeling of wholeness, tap into that. Now I want you to picture you breathing in that emotion, okay? And then when you're going to exhale, you're going to exhale the emotion, you're going to push it away in a sense. You're going to let it go. So do that with me, okay? So Inhale for a few seconds. Picture the emotion in your head, okay? Now picture it letting go as you exhale. And do this noise with me. Do this noise with me so you just sort of picture it sort of leaving your body, okay? Now do this again, okay? So now you're going to breathe in again, okay? Picture the emotion sort of coming up into the air and then letting it go. So hold it for a few seconds and then let it go. You might have to do this a few times to feel better. I found this to be incredibly helpful, and me just doing this now, I actually feel a bit better. Because I was feeling a bit sort of worn down today. Didn't feel like doing much of anything. I felt a bit sort of stressed out, and that just doing this with you helped me feel a bit better. So try that and do this a bit every day. You don't have to do like the whole inhale, exhale thing, but at least be aware of your emotions. Just sit down at least a few minutes a day and get in touch with those emotions. Now that we've looked into the psychological components of apathy, now let's look into the physical components of what could be leading you to apathy. Now, first thing to do is look at any sort of health-related issues you might have. You know, if you have back pain, you have whatever pain, Alzheimer's, dementia, probably not your case. Look at if you have any sort of diseases, if you're sick. You know, just being sick leads you to feeling less emotions often. That also often is a byproduct of, let's say, having the flu or even having COVID, for example. That could lead you to feeling that way. Also, another thing that could be leading you to apathy is just depression. Just straight up depression and anxiety. They can lead you to apathy. So how that works is if you address your depression, you know, in all of its components, right? You know, mentally, physically, spiritually, all of that. You address your depression, that's going to help your apathy. And it's sort of a two-way street where if you deal with your apathy, it's also going to help with your depression. So that's something worth looking into. Another thing I want to point out that's important is antidepressants. Now, this is sort of a controversial topic. Some people have different opinions on it, but antidepressants have been shown to lead to apathy in certain instances. Many people report that, you know, they feel depressed, and when they take the pill, it sort of numbs out their emotions, so they no longer feel sad, but they feel nothing. So if that's the case, if you've been feeling apathetic because you've been taking certain medications, this is not professional advice. This is just my opinion, okay? But consider possibly trying to wean yourself off of the medication. Maybe talk to your doctor. Again, I'm not a psychiatrist or anything like that. Tell them that you've been feeling apathetic if the medication is the issue, and that might help you. And the next thing I recommend is probably get checked for any sort of health-related issues. So talk to your doctor, you know, do some blood work, see if maybe you have certain deficiencies, and you know, if you have low energy, then the low energy could make you feel apathetic, and vice versa. Now, the second cause that could be causing your apathy, physiologically speaking, is dopamine exhaustion from addictions. Now, the term dopamine exhaustion here I'm using in a sort of general way. There's no proof of it in the scientific literature about dopamine exhaustion from what I know, unless someone wants to prove me wrong. But in addiction recovery, often people, they sort of feel apathetic. There's such a thing as numb pleasure response. Numbed pleasure response. So for example, if you play too much video games, at a certain point, you will feel less pleasure, less joy from playing the video games. And all the video games will do is stop you from feeling bad, in a sense. So you're feeling bad, you're feeling the craving. The only thing playing video games will do is satisfy the craving, right? If that makes sense. So for example, maybe you drink a bunch of alcohol. Best example, you drink some alcohol a few times, you feel good, you feel woozy, you feel like, oh, this is so cool. But then the more you drink, let's say you start drinking every day, you know, and then the effects become less and less. You become numb to the effects, so you need to drink more alcohol. Then You reach a point where it's just too much, and of course it becomes dangerous. Like any sort of addiction, when you do too much of it, it really rewires your brain to crave this thing, and if you don't have it, then you have apathy. And what this leads to is not enjoying any other activities. When you're addicted to a specific thing, even it could be as simple as checking your phone, or even you become so accustomed to that thing that you can't enjoy anything else, in a sense. And anything that's maybe less stimulating, let's say reading a book or hanging out with friends, it's no longer fun, which leads to you feeling numb, feeling like nothing is enjoyable anymore. So the root cause is actually the addiction, which leads me to the idea of doing a dopamine detox. Now, this was a term coined in the self-improvement community maybe a year or two ago, or a few months ago, where basically the idea is that you're going to detox of anything that really triggers dopamine, or that makes you feel like really, sort of stimulated and all that. So for example, caffeine, video games, movies, alcohol, anything that sort of stimulates you, you're going to stop doing that for a certain set of time. And Dr. Anna Lemke, who is a addiction specialist, she did recommend people to take an extended break for at least 30 days of anything they could feel addicted to. Now, she does not coin the term dopamine detox, but she sort of calls it something like addiction detox, where you detox from your addiction, see how you feel 30 days later, so you can reset your brain to liking different things than your addictions. You're going to see that you're going to start enjoying other things than your said addiction when you start doing that. So here's the detox protocol. What are you going to do? For the next 24 hours, here's what you're going to do. You're going to limit everything. So you're not going to play video games, not drink any caffeine, no alcohol, no drugs, no social media, right? Nothing stimulating, no sex, no anything, no masturbation, anything like that. So you're going to really reset your brain, so you don't do anything that's highly stimulating. Also, you're going to be eating simple foods, right? Don't order takeout or like all these crazy things that taste super good. Just eat simple foods. And you're going to do that for 24 hours. So what are the things that you're allowed to do? You're allowed to take a walk, you're allowed to exercise, you're allowed to meditate, you're allowed to journal, and that's pretty much it. Or you're allowed to, sit on your balcony, enjoy the scenery, and you're basically going to do nothing in a strange way. So what's crazy with that is that when you do that, I did that a few times, and what I can report is I felt a sense of mental clarity. I felt a sense of peace. I just felt more into my body in a strange way. And momentarily, I felt more depression, more sad at a certain point, but that was good because this moment of rest from all of these stimulation activities allowed me to tap back into these negative emotions and to confront them. So that was really good for me, to help me sort of get back in touch with who I was and confront my apathy and feel better overall. So you're not only addressing the physiological sphere here by detoxing from your mental stimulation and all that, but you're also addressing the emotional, psychological components by doing the detox. So it's very positive to do. I highly, highly recommend anyone who feels apathy to try that, and you're going to feel so much better, I promise. Yes, you want to do the dopamine detox one time, at least a good 24 hours. But after that, you want a long-term solution so that you avoid to reaching dopamine exhaustion again. The way to explain this is dopamine, you can kind of picture it as sort of a battery. When you, let's say, do a lot of video games, play a lot of video games, or drink alcohol, all that, like your battery is going down and down and down slowly. So if you play for, let's say, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, your battery is going to be completely down, and you have like no more dopamine in a sense to feel better, and you're gonna feel like shit. You're gonna feel apathetic. You're gonna feel nothing. So the trick here is that you only use a little bit of the battery, just a little bit, and there's a fucking ambulance or whatever going on right outside. Just a little bit of battery at a time. So maybe you'll use you'll play video games only 1 to 2 hours per day consistently, so that you never feel addicted, you never feel like you're doing too much, right? And you want to add in different hobbies or activities to replace the high dopamine activities. So for example, reading. I started playing Rubik's Cube recently, or playing chess, hanging out with friends, amazing thing to do. Reading books, taking walks, exercising, amazing. All of these things, you want to look at replacement hobbies and replacement activities to help you to replace all of these high dopamine activities. The third cause of your apathy could be your energy. There are many reasons why you might have low energy, but often that comes from lack of exercise, eating junk food, and bad sleep. Those are sort of the trifecta of why you could be feeling low energy, therefore feeling apathetic. Now, this sounds incredibly simple, but I know some of you will disregard these three things, trying to find the one trick, the one technique to no longer feel apathetic. But trust me, you want to address these fundamentals in your life, or else you're really not getting all the gains and the positive changes you'd be getting in your life. So first, with exercise, you want to be exercising because it's been scientifically proven, in hundreds, thousands of studies across, I don't know what, that exercising increases mood, increases your energy levels, and makes you sleep better, makes you healthier, everything is better. So you want to be exercising 2 to 3 times a week, hopefully, at least, at a sort of moderate to high intensity. And if that sounds too much to you, just try even once a week. And you want to add on top of that some daily exercises, daily activities. So even just vacuuming your house, or walking to the grocery store, walking back, something like that. Walking, just take daily walks, walking nature and all of that. That's definitely going to help. So you don't want to neglect any of those things, even if you don't feel like walking. I can't count a single time that I regret going outside and taking a walk when I was feeling down. Anytime I felt down, I didn't feel like walking, I went for a walk, and I always felt better afterwards. Even if it was 1% better, 5% better, I always felt better. So you want to give this one a try. So the next thing to do to help fix your low energy, that will help fix your apathy, is to look at your sleep. Now, I'm not going to give you all the tips on how to better your sleep. There's so many resources out there, but as a general rule of thumb, you want to sleep 7.5 to 8 hours per night. Make sure you sleep at a reasonable time, because when you sleep very late, the problem with that is that you wake up the next day and you don't feel as rested, because when you sleep during the day, because you sleep early in the morning, like 2-3 a.m., then you don't get as much deep sleep. You get less growth hormone, which is responsible for helping you with your bodily processes and all that. So you want to make sure you go to sleep early. Don't go to bed too late, because when you feel numb, when you feel apathetic, and you're sort of in this rut, we tend to stay up late, play video games and all of that, watch TV, now it's not TV, now it's Netflix, watch Netflix, try to go to bed before midnight. I guarantee you that will skyrocket your sleep. Make sure you sleep in a pitch dark room, as dark as you can. You don't want any lights. Now, the third thing to look at that could help improve your energy and therefore your apathy is your diet. Now, what causes apathy? I think this feeling of meh is, this sort of meh, you're kind of fat and feeling bloated and all that, is eating high processed foods, also junk food and foods that are really high in sugar and carbohydrates. They tend to induce this sort of food coma. And the problem with those self-inflicted food comas is that, let's say you feel sad, you feel apathetic, and you think you'll feel better if, let's say, you eat like, a bunch of junk food, you eat McDonald's, you eat like some sugary food, and you think you'll feel better. Well, yes, you might have a bit of a high from the sugar, you might feel good temporarily. The problem with that is that you feel very lethargic afterwards. Now, if your daily diet, if your diet on a regular basis constitutes all of those high fructose corn syrups and all of those processed sugars and refined grains and fries and McDonald's and whatever that is, then that's going to not only create food coma, but with all the inflammation that comes with all of those, highly processed oils, and that will create oxidative stress in your body and all that. It's just not good. And inflammation does lead to poor concentration, low mood, difficulty sleeping, so many things. Also leads to disease and all that. So you want to make sure that you add some anti-inflammatory foods to your diet. So vegetables are great. Berries, they're really rich in antioxidants. Blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, and all that. You want to add that. My secret formula that I do to help with inflammation and just feeling great in the morning, and combating brain fog, is I do half a teaspoon of turmeric, half a teaspoon of ginger powder, cinnamon, and I add that to a little bit of water, maybe 1 or 2 ounces, just like a shot. Add a bit of lemon water and drink that, and add a few cracks of black pepper on top of that, so that helps with the absorption of the curcumin. And you drink that every morning. Okay, I know it tastes a bit strange at first, but just do it one day and you'll feel much better. As a general long-term strategy, you want to look at optimizing what you eat. Make sure you have a healthy diet that's balanced, plenty of protein, plenty of vegetables, plenty of of healthy fats. So these are the most important. So you want to have that in your diet. And level 1, the thing you do at level 1 is you just eliminate all the crap. Okay, so level 1, limit takeout and junk food to once per week at most. Okay, so once per week. And then once you graduate from that level, you want to go the next step. Then look into seriously dieting, looking into a diet that you can sustain long term, that is healthy for you, and that you'll enjoy. So for example, me, I've been doing intermittent fasting for 9 years now, 8 to 9 years. So I've been doing that. It's helped me tremendously with energy levels and just feeling great and healthy. I've also done the ketogenic diet for 6 years or so. Now I'm back to a more balanced regular diet where I eat rice, beans, some legumes, and some vegetables with some meat. So it's just very sort of balanced diet with every sort of macronutrient I can think of that's healthy, not processed and all that. So that's my diet now. You can look more into it, but really just cut out the junk and you'll feel so much better, I promise you. Now, if you want to go more advanced here on diet, I'm not going to really go super deep into that because that could be a 5-hour video. But some supplements that help. Vitamin D helps with sort of just overall bodily functions and feeling better, testosterone and all that. Just go out in the sun. Just go out in the sun. That's the best way to get it. So walk 5-10 minutes a day. Just go out, and even in the shade, believe it or not, even in the shade you get some vitamin D. It's not as good as direct sunlight, so try to get direct sunlight if you can. Other supplements that help: omega-3s, EPA, DHA. I forgot if it's the EPA or the DHA part, but it helps with regulating mood, and omega-3s has been proven to help in people suffering with depression, and so that might help with your mood as well. Now, there are other supplements, for example, B complex, vitamin B complex, helps really with cognitive function, brain fog, and just sort of having a healthy brain. I believe that if you help your cognition, it's going to help your mood. That's what I truly believe. Which leads me to my next point, which is nootropics. Now, a huge disclaimer here, nootropics are very experimental. This is really the last step. If you want to go on the deep end, then those are some of the things I've tried that help me with dealing with my apathy, with my sort of low mood, low motivation. And the problem with that is you don't want to use nootropics as a crutch. So you want to use them maybe, to give you a boost on certain days, but you shouldn't want to depend on those. I'm actually on modafinil as I'm speaking right now to the camera. Always speak to your doctor before you try any of those substances that I'm going to recommend here and suggest to you, because you could have adverse effects. So I'm not held responsible if you try anything that I say and you get into trouble. So do your research. So the first nootropic that I'll recommend is L-tyrosine. Now, why L-tyrosine for apathy? Well, because L-tyrosine is a naturally occurring amino acid that you can find in meat. But the magic happens when you take L-tyrosine in its sort of powder form on an empty stomach. L-tyrosine helps, I'm not exactly sure on the literature, but it helps with creating dopamine because I believe it's a precursor to dopamine. And I found when I take L-tyrosine in the morning, let's say 500 to 1,000 milligrams, I feel more energetic, I feel more motivated, and it's really, really clean high. It's very clean, it feels just like how your body should feel on a good day. And the energy you get is great. It's a bit of a boost, and I truly believe it's pretty safe because it's naturally occurring in meat and so forth. So give that one a try. Now the second supplement, nootropic that really helped me with apathy is modafinil. Now be super careful here because modafinil is a prescription only drug in most places. So you want to look with your doctor, before you try any of that. Also, there's a 1 chance in 500,000 that you catch Stevens-Johnson syndrome, which is a very rare and terrible skin disease if you take modafinil. So you might want to get a DNA test. You want to get started on that, but I'm not going to go too deep on there. But modafinil is great. On modafinil, I report more energy, more motivation, just feeling better overall, and just feeling like I really want to get some work done as well. So if apathy is holding you back from getting some work done and achieving your goals, modafinil might be the key. Also, modafinil helps with doing some tasks that are maybe a bit more monotonous or you don't feel like doing, then it helps you sort of plow through. That also might be helpful. So something maybe you want to look at. And the last class of nootropics I want to recommend are cholinergics. Now, cholinergics are nootropics that affect the choline pathways. So many out there, so you can look into these. The one that helped me the most is called Noopept, Noopept. So that really helped me with sort of being more focused, more concentration, a bit of energy, and mostly it helps with sort of memory, sort of accessing your memory, and also reading and concentration. It really helps in this sort of area of your brain. Not as much with motivation, I'd say. I don't feel as much motivation on Noopept. It's more the cognitive function tends to be higher. So if you need help with cognitive function, then Noopept is something I'd recommend. Okay, my lights just gave up on me here, but whatever, we'll continue the video. So now we are at part 3, which is the environmental factors that will help you to deal with your apathy. Now, what I mean by environmental is mostly social. So your social environment, your friends, your family, and how those things can really affect how you heal from apathy, how you get better, and how you feel better. When I talk about fixing your environment, it's with the logical conclusion that helping your environment will help your psychology, right? So the ultimate goal here is actually fixing your psychology. Now, the number one reason why your environment could be leading you to apathy is because if your environment is toxic, negative, or judgmental, then that's going to lead to repressed desires and dreams. Now, for example, if your parents told you, they try to sort of project onto you that you'll never be successful, that you'll never be smart, that you'll never be a public speaker, which is what my dad told me, by the way, all of those negative things, if you're told these things, then you start developing this belief that there is no point in trying. If you rewind back to the first part of the video, this is the sort of belief, the initial foundational belief that leads to apathy, is believing that there is no hope. So to avoid having this belief implanted into your mind, then you have to look back into your environment, see where that belief might have started. Maybe it's not your parents, maybe it's your friends. Maybe your friends were critical. They told you, oh, well, who are you to try to be successful? Just, why don't you go to school with us and you'll party with us and hang out with us? Why are you doing all this entrepreneur YouTube stuff or whatever that is? If you have this negative environment, then these projections of negative beliefs about what you can do in life, those expectations, those worldviews will impact your psychology, therefore will impact how you think, therefore will impact your apathy. A lot of friends, a lot of family members, they tend to have certain limiting beliefs, and they project those beliefs onto you. It's always a projection. So here's the entire solution to that. So what do you do? Well, first, have a talk with your friends or your family. If they're being negative, they're trying to hold you back in life, they're toxic, just sit down with them and have a talk. Just tell them, hey, listen, I've noticed like the last few months you were kind of a bit negative towards me. You told me certain things that, that I couldn't achieve my success, in my endeavors and all that. And I want to tell you that, if you are going to continue to talk to me this way and, stop me from achieving my goals in life, then I don't want to hang out with you anymore. I don't see myself, continuing on this friendship if you're going to hold me back. So that might be very hard to do. You don't have to, put an ultimatum that you don't want to be friends with them. But I found that this helps, especially if you're really decided on improving your life, improving yourself, and getting rid of your toxic environment. That might be one of the first steps, is addressing the root cause head on, okay, not shying away from it. So you have to confront the truth. And once you do, I promise you that your emotional well-being will be much better. So when you first call them out, usually they should apologize if they are a decent friend. If they don't apologize, then they're probably just not a good friend. You should probably cut them off right away and try to make other friends. So you cut them, so you tell them, you give them sort of a warning. And if they continue on those negative behaviors, then you cut them away. So for example, I had a friend who, was passive aggressive to me, and he was sort of saying those mean, backhanded things. And one day I called him out on it. I'm like, hey, why did you do that? And then he apologized. He said he'll try not to do it again. And then that was it. But then he did it again. And the second time I did it, I told him, hey, listen, I told you the other time, to stop talking to me like that. And I just don't want friends that talk to me that way. It's just disrespectful. I don't want that anymore. So then I cut him away completely. And I made the mistake a few years later to, get back in touch with him. I hope that in 5 years he would have changed. But in 5 years he didn't change. He was still the same. So I had to cut him again a third time, like 5 years later. So yeah, that's just to show that unfortunately people don't usually change unless they are in personal development, unless they're really passionate about developing themselves and growing themselves, and they read a lot of books, and they're people who like want to learn and improve themselves. If they're not like that, then you can forget about them changing. Like, throw away all your hope that your narcissist friend, your narcissist partner will change. They will never fucking change. They will never fucking change. Just, I'm sorry to say, but if you've been feeling bad, depressed, negative because your narcissist relative, friend, you're hoping they're going to change, they're never going to change. So accept that, grieve the fact that they will never change, so you can move on and find other friends, find other people to relate to. Now, what if you can't cut them away? What do you do? If you can't cut them away, you try to limit the time that you spend with them. For example, maybe you don't want to cut away your parents, right? Because they're your parents. So instead of seeing them every week, maybe you see them once a month, once every 2 months. And the paradoxical thing that I saw when I did that, or when the people that I've helped started doing that, is that they started developing a better relationship with their parents, just because the time apart sort of helps you reflect and sort of be grateful for why you have each other in your life. And then when you do see each other on a rare occasion, they tend to be much nicer to you figure out. And now you don't just want to cut away the bad people, you want to start making new friends. You want to expand your social circle, meeting people who will support your goals, validate your emotions, help you. Because if your emotions and your goals are being shoved away by toxic people, then that's only going to exacerbate your apathy. For example, me, I have a meetup every few weeks with all of my close friends. We're like 5 or 6, and we call it the Superior Man Talk, which is funny because it's taken from the book David Data, The Way of the Superior Man. And he talks about how you should meet every few weeks with your guy friends and talk about serious things. So we do that, and we talk about our goals, our aspirations, what's holding us back in life, how we can overcome our obstacles. And this has been incredibly transformative and helpful, not only in my personal development, but in also dealing with negative emotions that were the cause of my apathy. I became apathetic not too long ago during my burnout, so I overcame that, through these talks, through hanging out with people, through social support. So you want to do that. This is imperative. And the last thing I'll tell you about this topic is set strong boundaries. Boundaries. Your emotions, your goals, your aspirations must be protected, because if you don't protect them, someone else will step on them. Someone else will try to take advantage of you. Therefore, your goals, your aspirations, your emotions that are so important will be pushed aside. Therefore, you will feel like giving up, you will feel hopeless, you will feel apathetic. So protect your goals, protect who you are and what you want, like everything depends on it, because everything does. Everything in your life depends on those boundaries and how you can protect yourself and protect, your sense of who you are, your purpose, your goals from invaders, from toxic people. Now, the second environmental/social cause that could be leading you to apathy is childhood emotional neglect. Now, I have a full series on childhood emotional neglect that you can watch, that you can just look up childhood emotional neglect, Nameless, on YouTube. You'll find it. So I'm not going to go super in detail here, but just to give you an overview, childhood emotional neglect is basically a lack of emotional support, a lack of emotional communication, and emotional acknowledgement in childhood, from your parents usually. And this happens because maybe your parents are not very emotionally literate, don't really talk about emotions, or they sort of put emotions aside. And this tends to develop, this weird sense of hollowness, emptiness, and loneliness that grows in adulthood. And adults that grow up in homes like these, they feel sort of detached, they feel lonely, which was my case. For example, parents who, let's say, will shower you with gifts, they will give you a bunch of stuff, but then they'll sort of, give you food, give you money, everything materialistically, everything's fine. But they never talk about emotions, they never talk about how you feel. They never acknowledge when you're sad, they don't really acknowledge it. They, instead of acknowledging the sadness and sort of teaching you how to deal with the sadness, they'll just, buy you more gifts, trying to make you feel better that way, which the intention of the parents are good, but it's not helping the child learn how to self-regulate, how to use how to process their emotions and overcome them, which can lead the child to developing emotional illiteracy, in a sense, not knowing how to regulate one's emotion, not being able to be aware of one's emotions, not being aware to change them, to use them in a good way. So how do you overcome childhood emotional neglect? Well, first, know if this is something you might be feeling. I highly recommend that you watch my videos on the topic, because it'll give you all the signs of it. But to give you a short overview, learn to self-soothe. Learn to do activities that are fulfilling to you, that make you feel good, that are not destructive, but that are constructive, that are helping you, in a sense, that making you feel great. For example, exercising, reading, journaling, watching a movie with some friends, hanging out with friends, things that make you feel great, make you feel like you are taking care of yourself. Also, learn how to be aware of your own emotions. Validate your emotions. Don't tell yourself that it's bad to feel a certain emotion. Don't beat yourself over feeling depressed, anxious, burnt out, apathetic, whatever. Learn to embrace those emotions within you so that you can, be okay with the emotions. And another suggestion that I have is talk about it. Open up about, you feeling lonely, apathetic, to your friends, to your family. You might even have that talk with your family members. So for example, one time I sat down with my mother and I just asked her, hey, you know what? When I was a kid, you used to hit me with a stick. I'm curious, why did you do that? And was it good? Do you think it was a good thing? And she told me, actually, I don't know why I hit you with a stick. It's just because your grandmother used to do that to me. And I was just it sort of gave me this sort of sense of enlightenment of like, oh wow, so she didn't hit me because she didn't love me, or she didn't hit me because I was a bad kid. It was just her programming. So it sort of helped me sort of put things in perspective as an adult, because you grow up as an adult, but your memories from childhood, they still sort of haunt you in the back. And if you don't address them sort of rationally and have this talk with the person who did this wrongdoing to you, then you might just unconsciously internalize the event as something bad, as if you're not worthy. Now what you want to do is, if you address it, you can address it even within yourself. You journal about it, you write about it. But I believe that if you really confront that person about it, not in a negative way, but in a constructive way, that can really help you out. Or just open up to your parents about it, open up to your friends, and you'll be on your way to overcoming this issue. So let's move on to the next environmental factor that it could be leading you to your apathy, which is your daily routine. You have a boring routine. You have nothing to look forward to. You go to a job you hate. You just clock in, clock out. You don't care. You're sort of numb, and in sort of these days, you just kind of bag the groceries or whatever you do at your job, and you go back home. When you go back home, you do the same thing. You just play video games, you watch movies, you sort of eat some junk food, numb yourself out, and then go to sleep. And the next day, the same thing. Now, if you're feeling apathetic and you're feeling like not motivated to do anything, you feel like meh, well, and your routine looks like this, then no wonder. It's important, if you're stuck in that phase, that you figure out what to do with your life. You figure out a sense of purpose, a sense of direction. Figure out what your passions are, what will make you feel more fulfilled. And you may need to do some self-exploration to discover what those things are. And then you want to start changing your routine slowly but gradually to include more things that will help you sort of add more novelty, more spice to your life, therefore helping you overcome that dreaded apathetic feeling. And I highly recommend that if you're feeling lost in your life, you don't know what to do, you feel apathetic, you have no goals to strive towards, and you want to become more fulfilled, you want to become more happy, strive towards achieving something in your life, because you feel like that time is running out, and you want to do something with your life, then click on the link below where it says free consultation, watch the quick video that will sort of help you sort of demystify what's going on, why you might be feeling that way. And then after you watch this video, you'll be invited to book a free consultation call with me, where basically for an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, we'll really discern what's going on in your life, figure out the root cause of why you could be feeling stuck, and then we'll help you to set a plan for the next 12 months so you know exactly what to do to get out of that rut, get out of this apathetic state. So this is probably the best thing you could do right now in your life if you're feeling stuck. You know all of this knowledge. If you watch this video up to this point, that's amazing, but knowledge isn't enough. You want to be taking action. So this is your opportunity to take action. Now, after you figured out your purpose, after you figured out who you are and what you want, then you want to change your routine. You want to look at your schedule and add certain things or remove certain things so that you have a better day, basically. So if you're not exercising, you might need to add that in. For example, me, I was feeling apathetic. I started some new hobbies. So I started doing longboarding, the Rubik's Cube. I started hanging out with friends more. That really helped with sort of helping with this apathetic state, trying out new hobbies, doing new fun things. That helps. But that is the cream on top of the cake. The real issue is figuring out who you are and what you want to become. Then you do that and everything else will just be better. Now we are into the fourth sphere of dealing with your apathy. So what you have to do next, this is what I call the spiritual sphere. The spiritual sphere, now this sphere is more advanced. You want to look into everything else we've talked about up to this point in this video before you get here. But if you're someone who is very introverted, sort of a very deep thinker sort of person, someone who likes to think in abstract terms, someone who is more abstract, someone who's more philosophical, this might be the part that you need to address the most, actually. If your depression, if your apathy is existential in nature, like one of my clients, Milan, that I interviewed a year or two ago, then this might be the place where you need to look at. So let's get into it. So what leads to apathy in a sort of spiritual sphere is really a lack of meaning in life, a lack of purpose, lack of meaning. You could call it whatever you want, but really feeling like things are pointless. And the nihilism that this creates leads to destructive activities, sort of high dopamine activities like gambling, drugs, video games. I know gambling is extreme, but even just browsing social media aimlessly, ordering junk food when you could just be eating, good food I already have at home. All these negative habits actually stem from a passive nihilism where you aren't taking responsibility for your life and creating meaning in your life, but actually you're just letting the world happen to you passively, and instead of creating your purpose, you let the world dictate itself onto you. And really it comes from a lack of a connection to something greater than yourself. And selfish needs, fulfilling selfish needs like getting more women, more money, more fame, whatever, that will only lead you so far. In fact, what I want to suggest to you is that if you do pursue these things, that might actually contribute to feeling apathetic and low motivation afterwards, because those things aren't what will feed your soul. What will feed your soul is really that sense of contribution, meaning, and purpose. So my answer to you is simple. You must transcend material needs and look for a deeper sense of purpose, and look at deeper needs that you could fulfill besides just the materialistic ones. So a lot of people who achieve fame, achieve money, become rich, you really, if you interview them or if you look at, their behavior and all that, or what they say, a lot of them say that becoming successful isn't what it's all cracked up to be. That having millions of dollars and all that, it doesn't necessarily make them much happier. In fact, there's a sort of strange hollowness that happens when you become successful. And there's many celebrities that are incredibly famous, incredibly popular, singers, dancers, DJs, rappers, whatever, that commit suicide because they're just not happy. They have it all. They have the woman, they have the money, they have the fame. It just doesn't make them happy. So in that case, then you want to do something else. So instead of pursuing money and fame, pursue contribution. Contribution is something that transcends only you. It transcends you into looking into everything else in the world, other people that you could help, people that you can contribute to, and that will give you a more wholesome, more purposeful feeling to your life. Number 2 thing to do is replace chasing after a woman. Replace dating a bunch of guys, dating a bunch of girls, and sleeping around, partying and all that, and all of this, for creating deeper connections. Now, I'm saying this because I'm speaking from experience. I remember when I was on my PUA sort of phase, I was going out every single weekend, 2 to 3 to 4 times a week. I would party, I would hang out with people, and go on these bunch of dates and with random girls. And it was always something lacking in the end. And I felt like because I couldn't get what I wanted, because I couldn't be happy, why bother? Again, the thought of why bother or why even try, which leads to apathy. This was the thought that I had. Therefore, I became incredibly apathetic. At some point, I would just go out and go through the motions. I didn't even care to talk to anyone, but I was just there. Why? Because to fill this hole, I didn't know how to fill. But the hole that I need to fill was this need for connection, need for love. Now, I know it might be different for everyone, okay? But if that's your case in the sort of relational domain, then you might want to look into doing something like that. And the third thing I recommend is look into your career. If your career is boring, if you hate it, if you hate your job, you don't feel fulfilled at it, you don't feel a sense of contribution, and you hate it, then move on from that job. Find a better job, find a better career. Figure out your purpose. And if you need help with that, again, you can book a free consultation call with me, or you can even grab my free ebook on how to find your life purpose, link in the description below. Now, we've talked about all of the spheres: psychological, physical, environmental, spiritual. What do you do? What's your plan? What do you do? Well, take whatever advice resonates with you the most, which one feels most urgent, most important, apply it now. I know this video might be a bit overwhelming, very long, so you maybe don't know where to start. So start with one thing or two. Try one or two things, and if these help your life, then add a few more things. So let's say you start doing some journaling, meditation, dopamine detox, it's helping you, but you feel like, your relationships are still, shit. So then you work on your relationships, you work on your environment, you have those difficult talks with the people that are toxic, all that, you make more friends, so then you add this on top of all the good habits you have. And you keep adding one thing at a time until you start feeling better. Don't overwhelm yourself, okay? Just go one day at a time, try one thing at a time, and add things gradually. So then after a few weeks, you can assess if it's worked, if it helped you or not. And of course, make sure you speak to a licensed mental health practitioner, because maybe, for most people, I would say trauma and just stress and negative events probably is the main cause of your apathy. So you can address those traumas with a therapist, probably might be one of the number one things you might have to do to overcome your apathy. In conclusion, apathy is a multifaceted issue, phenomena, where you need to look at not only specific things to solve it, but you need to look at everything as a whole, because if you just try to take a pill, you just try to do this, try to do that, then that might not really help. You need to look at every sphere. So if you need help with figuring out who you are and what you want, then you can book a free consultation call with me, as I've said, link in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video on how to deal with apathy, then make sure you watch this video here about emotional numbness. So I'll see you there.